Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight, and welcome to Rethinking the Runway, Race in the Fashion Industry. This is the first in a three-part series called Fashioning Change and Changing Fashion. I am Allison Trope. I'm a professor in the School of Communication, and I want to take a moment to thank our generous sponsors who are underwriting the series, Gabriella and Austin Hurst, and to our partner for this event, the Institute for Diversity and Empowerment at Annenberg. I'm going to introduce our panelists, and I'll just tell you a little bit about how we're going to do this. I'll be asking them a series of questions. We'll have a nice conversation, and then we'll open it up to you in the audience after about an hour or so, 45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, that's great.
That's good? Yeah, everybody, you can clap now, by the way.
Yay! You were saying you separated the troublemakers.
Yeah, okay. The troublemakers
not
aren't
really.
sitting. Yeah, I think I'm not even going to moderate. I think they're going to joke around the whole time, but no, okay.
Oh,
No.
Let me have
I'm
going to have a serious introduction right now. Ready, Bethann? Okay. So Bethann Hardison started modeling in the late 60s and worked for a range of designers from Willie Smith and Stephen Burrows to Oscar de la Renta, Calvin Klein, and Issey Miyake. She's founder of the modeling and management agency that bears her name, as well as the activist groups Black Girls Coalition and Diversity Coalition. Kimora Lee Simmons is a businesswoman, author, philanthropist, producer, top model, television personality, and Tony Award winner.
Yes.
That's a lot.
We don't play.
In 1999, she launched the highly successful line Baby Phat, and a decade later, after parting ways with that brand, she created her own eponymous luxury women's wear brand, KLS. Ebonee Davis is a model whose editorial credits include Glamour, Teen Vogue, and Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. She's done campaigns for Calvin Klein, L'Oreal, Adidas, and Urban Outfitters. As an activist, Ebonee has spoken openly about the exclusion and racial bias in the fashion industry. And last but not least, Julee Wilson is the fashion and beauty director at Essence magazine, where she oversees the brand's vision for style and daily posts on the website, from daily posts on the website to its monthly covers. She was previously the senior editor at the Huffington Post.
Yes, she was.
So welcome, everybody. I want to start by sort of setting the scene a little bit and talking about New York Fashion Week, which just ended not too long ago. And I want to highlight some of the headlines that celebrated and congratulated the fashion industry for its diversity. So we saw some headlines including the New York Fashion Week Spring 2018 runways were more diverse than ever. This season was the most diverse New York Fashion Week yet. At least 2 models of color walked every runway this past New York Fashion Week. Fashion is finally figuring out diversity in ways that actually matter. All right. So if you read all of those headlines, we might say that our work here is done. Maybe we don't need to have this panel. But I think we all kind of know better that this is not something that's over. Not only fashion, but other creative industries are dealing with these problems with racial inequity and bias. So today, I want to start by talking a little bit about the history. And I want to go to you, Bethann, first. And I want you to talk about going back to maybe 1973, that event at Versailles, kind of fill people in a little bit on that and why that was important, why that was such a watershed moment.
The Battle of Versailles in 1973 was important more now than it was at the time, because in hindsight you look back and you see what actually happened. When we were doing it at the time, it was just great that the girls that got booked, and the designers that were chosen were going there. And what really was the significance was the American designers getting an opportunity to have a stage in Paris to show that they weren't just sportswear designers, that they could bring something to the table in the industry of apparel. Out of that came Stephen Burrows, who became the most recognized one. And out of that also, now as we reflect back, there was a numerous amount of girls of color that was in the show. Many people think that it was all girls of color. It wasn't. It was white girls, and it was girls, Asian girls, and then it was girls who were just dancers. So it was a mixture. And now when we look back at it, it comes down to the fact that we, the girls of color, are really being recognized for that moment because it was so quiet afterwards. You know, after we did it, everybody went back to what we did, and nobody thought anything. It was just big at the moment. But 30 years later, was it how many years? Can you count? Okay. So many years later.
40.
Thank you.
40
years. Thank you. 40 years later, people started to recognize it. 5 years. It started to be the Metropolitan Museum recognized the girls. You know, I was one of the key girls who walked it because of the programs. When I walked, the programs went into the air that showed that the French had actually surrendered to the fact that we brought something that was very simple. We had Liza Minnelli, and we just had the girls and music. And most, shows in Paris, no one had music at that time. We did in New York. And so what wound up happening 6 years ago or more, Metropolitan Museum recognized the girls, and then Huffington Post gave us 100 Game Changers, which I was very proud of that for some reason, I don't know why. And then a woman heard about us, and she decided to make a documentary. And then Robin Givhan decided to make her first book about it. Now HBO is doing a narrative about that whole moment, written and directed by Ava DuVernay. So it's just that after the fact, many years later, you recognize what it did. At the time, it was just a gig, and you were so happy to be part of it because you were going to Paris. But now it has its impact.
And it sort of was around the same time as you had the first models of color gracing the covers of fashion magazines, right? Mm-hmm. Around the late 60s and into the 70s.
Not so much fashion. A couple of girls did work. The most important thing is that there was a difference between the runway model and the print girl. There was a separation. The runway model really serviced the design and the manufacturing business. The print girl only did editorial, advertising. The runway model never interfered with that division, and vice versa. It was Calvin Klein who decided, as a great marketer he is, that he wanted to put the print girl on the runway so that the editors and the audience could visualize the girl already in the clothes so that he can get the editorial, which he was lacking. But actually, we didn't have a lot of editorial at that time, but there were certain girls who did it. And, Pat Cleveland did editorial. Iman came eventually after, and she did. And there were other girls who did. Beverly Johnson, of course, came along. But mostly we were known to really run the runway. And then eventually that division got closed down, and it just ended. And the print girl, because of what Calvin did, became the print girl as well as the runway girl.
Okay. And Kimora, you were nodding when Bethann was talking about the difference between print and runway. Can you talk a little bit about your backstory in terms of how you got started, when you got started, and whether or not you saw models of color and on both print and in runway work?
So I came on the scene about 1989, right?
Right.
Paris.
Right.
A little bit after that.
Yeah.
And then some of the bigger girls, Iman, for example, Beverly Johnson, they had been around for quite some time before me. So they were almost not doing as much anymore. Like, they were celebrities in their own right long before nowadays you have, your fashion celebrities and your music celebrities. So I looked up to those kind of girls, and you would get a rare glimpse of them because they weren't doing everything. But I started off as a runway girl, strictly. That's why I was nodding. So I came from St. Louis, Missouri, and I was discovered in Missouri, probably Kansas or something, at a convention, really. And I ended up in Paris, because everybody wants to go to Paris. And
then I went and got her.
Yeah, I came to New York after the fact, which is when I was represented by Bethann, which is an interesting thing because I always say when you think of other models like your Cindy Crawfords and other girls that even are from the Midwest, they go first to New York. But I went first to Paris because I was considered weird looking.
Yeah.
So I would not have made it in Chicago or California or New York.
How did you hear that you were considered weird looking? How did that come up exactly?
Well, growing up in the Midwest, I already looked like this. But it was strange at the time. That was strange. And being raised, my mom is Asian, and so she was like always the oddball, that she had this little weird looking kid. And there was no one, you know, that your play dates and stuff that we do now, there were no kids that looked like me, and there were really no moms with kids that looked like my mom. So I was already very different and trying to find a place for myself. So fashion gave me that, but I knew from very early on that, yeah, I was different. And just getting, you know, into the game a little bit more, and you have an agency, and they kind of tell you where you're going to go and what's going to happen. And New York was just not my stop, like a Nikki or Cindy Crawford. Just girls of color, or girls that looked, you know, a lot of times they called me exotic, which then was super like offensive, like I was like a giraffe. But now I love it. But okay, so then the exotic girls go to Paris. They go to sometimes, you know, Milan. But that's where I ended up. And one of my very first castings was Chanel, and that's where I met Carl. And Carl at the time was looking for, you know, the next big face, and so was Yves Saint Laurent at the time. There was like a whole big battle of the two, and I became Carl's girl. So Carl being so big, and the House of Chanel saying, this girl is the next face, this girl is the face of the future generation, all of a sudden it became, for me, you know, acceptable to look how I looked, and I embraced and I resembled, if you would, bits and pieces of lots of different people. And so that's what people started to identify with. But me being a runway girl, there were plenty of girls like your Sonia Coles and your Nadege and that are strictly runway girls that were already there. So in terms of being on the runway, I saw lots of women of color. But in the fashion industry as a whole, when she's saying the difference between editorial and runway, probably not so much. And when I look now, I always show, you know, at home I'm always showing, and I look at every girl that I grew up with, came up with. And when you show them on the phone, and I say, look, these are the girls I grew up with. If you look at Sonia Cole right now, or any of those girls, they look the same. And that is beauty. They don't have, they're not altered, they don't have like extreme plastic surgery, they don't have like odd implants in odd places. They look the same then as they look now, and that is what's beautiful. So the idea now of what's beauty, and again, it's taken on a different turn with celebrities and how you got famous and why, but the fashion stays, to me, the same. It's true beauty, and the girls now that are more popular and famous, to me, is not necessarily an everlasting beauty.
Well, yeah, I want to add something to that, because in the fact that
someone was like, amen.
The factor when it's true that Carl was looking for something unusual, and she was in an agency in St. Louis, but the idea of, because of the type of agent I was and the kind of company I had, someone told me about her and told me I should go to St. Louis, call the agent and talk to her. And I didn't know nothing about her doing anything. She was in school. I didn't know anything about her being going to Paris. It was just once I went there, that's when I had interest in her. But that's true. It takes a certain eye or a person who believes in certain types to sort of like want to change how we see things, because that's your pleasure. And that's the hard thing about it. In her case, it was like I was immediate wanting you.
But you had a lot of, you had all the girls that would be considered, and boys, you had all the people that probably, they would have said, oh, they're exotic. Like Bethann, you know, I know you had Naomi, you had.
No, I didn't have Naomi. I didn't have Tyra, but
over time you had Tyson.
Yeah, that's true. That's over time. But the fact of it is that I had a lot of white kids, but I was very good about the kids that were of color. I believed in them. You don't remember having white kids? She said no, I don't remember.
I remember all the black folks.
She just remembers her.
I didn't say if she said it, but I was thinking that.
Anyway, go ahead.
All right, so I want to ask Ebonee.
Good point, Bethann.
Does what these two just talked about, does that resonate for you in terms of thinking about feeling different, feeling exotic, being labeled in a particular way by those around you?
Definitely. I definitely relate to what Kimora was saying about breaking into the industry and having these labels placed on you. When I first got scouted from my agency in Seattle, I was told that I should go to South Africa and work for a few months there, and that market would help me to build. And then when I got to New York, the response was just, oh, we don't know what to do with you. Your look doesn't really, we don't know what to do with your look. We have girls who look like you already. We just don't know what to do with you. That was just sort of like the general response. I knocked on so many doors, probably over 20 doors. I didn't get an agency the first round that I went, and then I came back and did it all over again, and I got signed with one, and they, were just like, oh, we're just gonna take a chance on you. So it was already just like this really uncertain situation that I was getting myself into, and it kind of on their end felt like they were just sort of like taking a risk, and they're like, we have black girls already, but when they're not available and the client still wants a black girl, we can send you out to meet the client and possibly get you in the door that way. So it was kind of just like filler material, essentially, I guess. It was just like, we'll just just sort of a filler. And that was, since I've been in New York for 5 years, I tried to change from that agency, the first agency that I was signed with, and it was like over and over again, just knocking on doors, being told no, staying with the same agency until about a year ago, I signed with another agency, the Lions, and they've done a really incredible job of not only looking for models, but looking for women who have voices and brands around themselves and who are actually trying to create something. And so it's really given another just like dynamic to the modeling industry and for me, personally, so I can come and speak and do things like this because, it's a lot more than just
being
how you
in front
look.
of you. Yeah. I want to, just for the audience sake, I want to inject something with what she's saying. Between the time of Kimora, the time of her, it's the industry and the market changing, and so it's important to understand that when Kimora came along, it was like it was like almost like after the civil rights movement. It was like freedom. You know what I mean? It was things that I could do. I mean, I could sell if I had the right tool, which is the kid. The models, they could work because of who I was, but also because it was the right time. When she came along, which is decades later, the industry had changed in many ways. So it was like trying to figure out how to, because it has started getting shut down. We had casting directors. And when Kimora was modeling, or I was modeling, there was no such thing as casting directors. Casting directors only worked in advertising and catalogs. But then when someone like her came along, your time period, they had gone through the wealth of it all, and then casting directors started determining if a girl could work, and who, and the power from the model agency got lost. And it's very important, because I was a model agent, because it's important to know that the business, if they can't figure out they can sell you, they're scared. They want to be able to know. It's like any other business. It's like what CAP is going through right now, if you want to say the least. It's when they think they can't make it work for the money, they're afraid to let it go. So in her case, there had been a lot of models had come. I mean, we had when she was modeling, in the 80s, all the great girls came along, and we had a wealth of black models. I mean, thank God for Elle magazine, American Elle coming along with Regis Penez, putting black girls on the cover inside. It literally competed with Hearst and Condé Nast. It forced them to have to use the black girls. And all of a sudden, black girls were in magazines, which hadn't even happened before. We never had all of that. So Beverly Peel and Tyra and Naomi, and they're doing a photo shoot on a boat. Normally it would be in one room, you got one picture, and you're out. Now they're on location. So it's a change, and I want you to know when you're hearing these stories that it's a change of time. Her time, it became competitive time. It was a difficult time. They're trying to figure out how to. And it's very interesting. To me, always, I want to say this about you, exotic was always the most beautiful thing to hear. Exotic was like, you're exotic, like Iman and you say, well, it sounds like I'm a giraffe or a lion. But it was a beautiful thing to hear. In your case, it really was a difficult time.
Yeah.
And it still is.
I was going to
But
say,
it's much better.
And I think that mentality, you know, it's not just exclusive to the fashion industry. It's something that you see carried out through all of entertainment.
Yeah.
It's just the idea that black doesn't sell, but that's been proven wrong, especially recently. You've seen, you know, the Fenty foundation, the dark shades selling out. You see Girls Trip hitting 100 million, 35 million in the opening weekend. Black sells, you know, and so it's this mentality that we really have to get rid of
You
in
have
order
to force
to.
through.
Yeah.
You have to force through. It's very
Right.
true. But I always feel like television, when I'm fighting so hard in the industry of fashion, for the fashion model, because fashion models are not the fashion. We service the fashion industry. But I always look at television as being more advanced than us. I saw right characters that you see playing. Well, it should have been a white guy, but it isn't. It's a black guy. Oh, that could have been it. But we got to now push for the Asians for sure because they need their rights.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, yeah, you know what I'm saying. It's the fact of it is it really is a very important moment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
piggybacking on the whole modeling industry right now, and speaking about Ebonee, I always bring this up because Ebonee did a TED Talk that was just so amazing. If you haven't seen it, please Google it. It's awesome. She really talks about really important issues, a lot of which we're talking about today. But it's been really hard at Essence, say, to get the big, beautiful, amazing black models.
Always has been.
Because they're like, no, like we don't want you to shoot for Essence. We don't want you to shoot for
devalues you as a model. Is their thinking.
Yeah.
It makes you urban.
So the
and once you're
agency, you're talking
pigeonholed,
about the agencies.
We're
I'm
putting
talking
our
about-
models in Fendi and Gucci. I mean, Ebonee's shot for us. Beautiful
since
spread.
changing agencies, I've shot for Essence. My old agency would be like, okay, if you shoot for Ebonee or Essence magazine, you're going to be labeled as urban. When you're labeled as urban, you're no longer high fashion. You can't be on the runways. You're not going to be in Elle.
This is
You're not
true,
going to
you
be
know.
in Vogue. You're not going to be.
But
I hate to say
and
it.
it's maddening.
But
it's maddening.
The thing is, it creates a disconnect between the black top models and black people in the world. It's like, who are their heroes if we are pulling them from the roots away from black culture?
Okay.
Bethany's like, settle down.
Okay, let me just tell you something. It's interestingly enough, the girls who were top girls at that time, like the Naomis, Tyra, different girls came along and they would say, I want to do the magazine. And then we would just go to them, and it had to be hard because the magazine back then, this is the 80s.
Yeah.
They couldn't get girls. They used to call me all the time. Girls were not my agency, but they knew I had influence, and I would have to talk to the girl and see. And if she said, I want to do it, she was already top. She could do it. But if you're coming up, I, as a model manager, I know the game. I'm going to play the game. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you build the girl to a place. Because if you do it in the beginning, it's true. You have to know your market. You have to know who you're fighting against and who you're working for. That's just business at any level. So what we do is you say, okay, you don't do it now. Because if you do it now, they're going to regard you, and Vogue is not going to pick you up. Now, if you want to work for Vogue, or if you just want to make sure that your cousin and your aunts in Detroit see you, then we're going to do this magazine. We're going to do Ebonee, and we're going to, but you got to wait.
But isn't that
But
part
even
of
when you
changing?
wait, the
Yeah.
bigger models aren't. They won't let us book them.
I know that.
No, they just won't. And
Never- they
if,
always
if
been like
they, and if we even get to that conversation, it's, well, can they have a cover?
I know.
And it's like, well,
Right.
Vogue isn't giving them a cover.
Yeah.
Like, why should we have to
That's
give them a
exactly-
cover
that's
as
exactly
Essence
right.
to be in a beautiful spread shot by an amazing photographer? We don't have, like, if you look at our magazine, sure, we don't have the circulation and the advertising
And you're
pages
not a
like
fashion magazine, you're a
Vogue.
lifestyle magazine. You're right.
Absolutely, but we still do pull
Quality.
the most amazing clothes.
do.
We have amazing photographers. We go on location. We fly to Thailand. We'll go to London. Like, we have really amazing shoots, but they still won't allow us to, those girls.
It's just
that's
the
the thinking
belief.
that's the thinking of those particular agents. In my case, that wasn't so because I'm one of the few black agency owners, but I had to have the white counterpart that was primarily what I had in order to fight the system, because once I have the top white kids, there's no way they can't tell me she can't work and that she can't work because now I got the road. But these other agents, they don't have our backs that way. They don't even feel it. They're just busy pushing cards and numbers. So they don't have the commitment. I had a commitment to Essence because I knew the first editor, the first pages, the publishers. I believed in it, but you have to figure out how to do it. And it's still a shame that it's that way, but it is because they're
it's
afraid.
hard. Right. And I look back at the archives and you see Naomi, you see Iman, you see all of these amazing people inside the magazine, on the cover of the magazine, and it's hard to see that we can't be in that place again because there are these gatekeepers who are like, we're not giving you that girl.
So true.
And it's like, well, why? And that girl could want to be working for Essence,
exactly true.
but the agents are like, no, you are not going to shoot for her.
They scare her down. But the fact of if the girl is top, if the girl is really top, she'll take that chance. But it has to be that kind of girl, and it's really
like
scary.
an Ebony.
Well, but Ebony is different because Ebony was more of a commercial girl. You know, see, that's the difference. When you start working in that other area, you can sort of bridge off that because Ebony's not trying to be in Vogue anymore. She wants to get her voice out there. She wants to enjoy working as a model because she doesn't know what else she wants to do. She might want to just, paint buttons the rest of her life after this. But at the end of the day,
I got big plans.
Big plans, buttons, paint. But in the end of the day, that's the difference. The girl who really is that editorial girl that's out there, you try and get someone like who we could say Imam.
Right.
I use her as a perfect example because it's the top of my head. Imam, the younger one, not the older one. But the fact of it is, yes, you can't get someone like that. That same thing happened with Vogue Arabia. Vogue Arabia starts out right. The editor wants badly to have a girl who has the culture that represents the magazine. Her agent would not let her shoot. This is Vogue Arabia. They didn't want her to be. And she's Muslim. She's Moroccan and she's Egyptian. No, Moroccan and Dutch. So she basically is like she wants to do it, but the agent's telling her, no, it's not a good idea. You don't want to do that right now. See? So it's just, no matter where, it's their ignorance.
Yeah. It's about the cultural thing, It's not about, I think it's less about the girl's career and just more about we don't look at this culture the way, we just don't value this culture.
I wish it was that good. They're ignorant. It's not about, if they had that mentality, I say, okay, cool, I got that. But they don't. They're stupid. And literally, stupid's a good word. It's stupid. They're stupid. They don't even know that it's okay. Right. So they can't fight for it. They can't see it. They don't see the
value in it.
That's right. They're not game changers. They're not trying to change the world. They're just sitting there doing what everybody else does. And that's part of the problem. So it's not even coming out of that.
But then these, I have to say, these mainstream magazines then will put, black models in it, and then all of a sudden they're woke and, super diverse.
Yeah.
And, you put a few black girls in the editorial for one season or one issue every 6 months. And now, oh my gosh, this magazine is so diverse and so inclusive. And it's come on now.
Yeah.
Come on,
I want to go back to that mindset, though, and the kind of
introduction
divisiveness.
Oh yeah, did we ever get to Julee's introduction?
Yeah,
we did. She didn't ask me a question. I just jumped in.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But I wanted to talk about the urban label, and so you've heard it, but you heard that back when you started Baby Fat, right? People sort of marginalized or said it was urban, which gave it a different kind of.
Well, that was the upside.
Was it always good? Or?
Yeah.
No, sometimes no, I think.
Yeah.
What, like what?
Well, when we were trying to get into all the department stores, they would say, you're going to be in the department that's urban. And we would say, well, why? Is it urban as in streetwear? Is it urban like the color of the people who make it? Because that's racist. Or, is it the color of the people who make it or wear it? Or what constitutes urban? And to this day, that was one of the talks we had at Fashion Week. You were right there.
Yeah.
How to explain to people that Baby Fat don't call it urban.
Well, it's interesting.
Because it was the same thing. Is it what you wear? Because now there's all the brands are retro.
Yeah.
Right.
So now the conversation is alive again about Baby Fat. But we made the velour suit. Juicy Couture came along and made the same velour suit.
Yeah.
But we were considered urban. We made the puff coat, the down jacket with the faux fur trim.
I had
the parka.
Yes.
And we put that parka over the evening gown. You were going to the Met.
Yes.
But and it's a top seller. Ours was a top seller, but it was considered urban. So
But
I have that.
Yeah, that's exactly true. What you're saying, too, but just why I said yay, urban, is because urban saved the garment district. A lot of people don't know that. And the urban kids didn't know. They were just making clothes. There were so many brands that come out. And this is right when you were still working as a model. There were so many brands that were coming out. They saved the industry because the garment district was going down. When the urban companies came up, there was a market that no one had ever touched before. And that really gave such credence to that brand. But of course, then some of the urban companies would say, well, I don't want to be urban, like Puff, Russell. Well, why we got to be labeled? Why can't we go across the board? Because they knew that market was there because those people were wearing it. The kids were putting it on. But the department stores, once again, it's labeling. Like the record business, the music business. Everything has to have a slot. Because if it doesn't have a slot, they're afraid it's not going to sell.
And it's important to say that if you're going to slot us, that then you have to be equal when you talk about the customer and and the distribution of their dollars. So if you want to put us on the floor and label it as urban, then you should give us who are your urban customers. The urban customer at Macy's or Bloomingdale's accounts for, you know, I don't know the exact number, way more than half of their business, way more than 50%, 60%, 70% of their business. But you are not allocated those dollars overall in the store. You're not allocated that floor space overall in the store. You're in a different section.
That's right.
So
where sometimes they can't even find you.
Yeah. So that's been a big conversation with Terry Lundgren and people, you know,
so
retailers all over.
So it becomes another kind of gatekeeping structure, right? Yeah. Whether you're in retail or, you know, trying to book a magazine.
I think it depends on how you're using it.
Right.
How you're classified, how you're using it. Or if you look at Tommy Hilfiger, who's a dear friend, years ago, he went and got Kidada Jones to help with all of his marketing. She went and got every single hip-hop artist. Tommy had a resurgence.
It was before Tommy, it was his brother.
No, before that. It was Tommy. You're saying Andy. Before that, Tommy put every single artist in an ad, and Tommy blew up. Tommy then came out later on, and someone caught him in the street, and he was like, I don't even love hip-hop music. I love rock and roll. You know, my favorite group is the Rolling Stones, which is all great. But then the hip-hop guys that had helped prop him up got a little mad, and they were like, okay, well, if you don't love us, we don't love you. So it depends on...
And they start calling them racist.
Yes. So it depends on how it's used, what classification, I think is
well said.
How it makes a difference.
Right.
It's true.
So Julie, can you talk a little bit more about how you tell these stories in a magazine like Essence, as compared also maybe to the way other magazines tell stories about race?
I mean, at Essence, we celebrate Black women and Black culture all the time. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, we're not like pointed out as being extra inclusive or diverse. That's just what we are. So, but when we're telling a story, you know, with the type of models that we get, the type of designers that we use, like we have to be super diverse in that. I always say there has to be some diversity in your diversity. Like you can't give me like a Halle Berry looking girl and think that you're talking to all Black people, and you can't give me a Lupita and think that you're talking to all Black people. And at Essence, thankfully, we have the brevity to like really tell a story of all Black women. You know, get the girl that, you know, dark-skinned girl, get the lighter-skinned girl, get all the girls in between, and not have to just like pick one. Be like, there's the one Black girl that will represent all Black girls. We get to really, you get to open up the magazine and like really see yourself. I always say with other magazines, a lot of times as, you know, Black women and men, we have to do the mental gymnastics of figuring out how is that blush going to look on me? Like they didn't put a Black girl in this whole beauty feature. Or what is that dress going to look like on me? They didn't put a Black girl in the whole, you know, fashion, in the whole fashion section. But at Essence, thankfully, we get to really try to have a reflection of our community and ourselves. So it's really nice. And I mean, this is the first Black like brand I've worked for. So it's really nice. When I was at the Huffington Post, you know, it was I was always like waiting for something, you know, like black to happen so I could like jump on it and write it. I was that girl. I mean, it really helped my career in a sense of it made me also, you know, very attractive to Essence when they called me, because I just carved a lane for myself at HuffPost for anything black that was happening, blackface, anything good or bad in the fashion industry, I was writing about at the Huffington Post. So it was, it's just something I'm passionate about. You know, it's not easy being in this industry as a black woman. And I find it, now that I'm at Essence, it's, you know, interesting too, because I'm in this unique spot. It's not a fashion magazine, it is a lifestyle magazine, but being a fashion and beauty director, I'm still in this like very awkward position of having this very high title and being in this industry and still feeling kind of the marginalization of being a black woman and like working so hard to get here. One example of that is the whole thing with Dapper Dan that just went down with Gucci. You know, I was able, I hear you. I hope you guys all know about that situation, but Dapper Dan's, one of his designs from the 80s, right? It was in the 80s that piece was made for famous track runner. Big puffy sleeve jacket, like bomber jacket, fur bomber jacket that he created with the Louis Vuitton logos. Anyway, Alessandro from Gucci just plagiarized, took it like
Seemingly.
Definitely plagiarized. And I was able to say that. I said that in our piece on Essence.com. And it was so interesting because no other outlets could really say that. Like, because they're all getting money from Gucci advertising and stuff. And I was like, they plagiarized, it was wrong, blah, blah, blah. I know Dap, and so he actually lives on my block. So like, it was like very much in like a very personal situation. And I was very voicey in my piece. And I remember doing a panel that week, actually. It was so interesting. I was on a panel about diversity later that week. And someone said, I read your piece, and you were so opinionated about Gucci, like, aren't you scared? Like, you're gonna ruin your relationship with Gucci? And I was like, what relationship? Like, I don't have a relationship with Gucci, which is like, it's funny, but at the same time, it's sad. When I was at the Huffington Post, I had a relationship with Gucci. Gucci, their PR, their people would call me, they would email me, they would invite me to things. They wanted to be written about at the HuffPost, and I was at the table. The second I went to Essence, I can't pull any clothes. I'm not being invited to anything. My emails aren't being returned. And it's like, are you kidding? And I'm like, this is a company that puts all black, has a whole campaign with black people in it, and you don't want to be in the biggest black magazine in the world. So it was really hard for me to, I mean, like, I understand that that's the nature of the game, but it was hard for me to understand, and it was a real, it was a more, I mean, my eyes were open, but my eyes were even wider.
I want to ask you, go ahead, Bing.
I was just going to say, it just lets you know, like, the lack of depth behind the effort to diversify and, you know, to get the representation in there. It's like, if they truly wanted that representation and diversity, then they would return the phone calls, they would return the emails, but it's like, no, we're just going to shoot an all-black campaign and get, you know, the response that we get, and then that's the extent to which we're actually going to contribute to this movement.
No.
I wanted to ask.
Go ahead.
Let me ask you a question. I wanted to ask you, when you said that it's very difficult as a black woman in this industry. Tell me about that.
I just feel like.
Tell us about that.
Just the respect and the consideration and being, again, a seat at the table. Not to, I mean, I know that's like such a buzzy way to explain things now with Solange's album, but it's. Like, I just thought at this point in my career too, like, as a director, like, if I'm RSVPing to fashion shows, if I don't, like, and I'm not a snob about front row, that sort of thing, but like, if an editor-in-chief or a fashion director RSVP'd your show, you give them a front row seat. Like, you just do. That's just like, and for a major brand, I'm not just like, this is not some podunk, like, magazine like from the middle of the country. This is a major publication, a heritage brand, and like when you're getting like 3rd and 4th row seats, and you're just like, what am I here for? Like, what, do you not care? But then they'll also be the same people like, well, you're gonna shoot that dress? Like, if we send it, are you gonna shoot it? It's like, can you send it and then we'll see? Like, the disrespect, I think, is like on a whole nother level. We always say in the office, I'm like, they would never treat someone at Vogue like that. And we get it, it's Vogue. Like, I'm not trying to downplay Vogue, but like, there's only so few magazines that are doing it on the level that we do it on, and we're at a big publishing house. Like, why would you treat us like that? It's like very much the redheaded stepchild, like in the situation.
So, but do you think, but it's not because as a black woman, it's just because of the affiliation to the publication that you have, but it's not because, I want to understand that.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I was at the table when I was at HuffPost, and now I'm not at the table when I'm at Essence. Yes, but it is still hard as a black woman, even being at the HuffPost, because there's so few of us.
Yeah.
There's so few of us, and we, we're just fighting to have, to be represented and to be heard, and like there's also this like feeling of like they have their token black person at the magazine or something, and like they already have them. Like, how do I get in
the
there?
magazine? So you're fighting within the magazine to even get the proper. It happened at Vogue. It happened at all the magazines. It's very true.
What I think is an important distinction also about when you talk about ethnicities and having a seat at the table and diversity and being exotic. Just for example, if you look at this room, it's not only purely the African American woman, I think, in fashion. When you talk about diversity, it's Asian, it's every single color of the spectrum. And if you're talking about even African American, it's not one color of the spectrum. Most of the colors of the spectrum that we would discuss, if you allow, to be discussed in terms of colors of the spectrum, but African American includes all of those colors as well. So diversity to me is not only about African American, but it's about all of the. So I have 4 kids. I have 4 kids, for example. They're German, Asian. Yes, they are African American, but they're German, Asian, African from Africa. They are all different colors. So I think it's important when you have this conversation to also include colors of the spectrum. It shouldn't just be like a slot, like a parking spot.
Brown people.
One spot.
That's
brown color, and she's going to be black.
Yeah, right. but that's the fight that I have. Has always been the model of color. When people say to me, "Oh, you fight for the black model," I said, "No, I fight for the model. I'm fighting for the model, whatever color she is." But when it comes down to it, the person who's the lowest man on the totem pole is the model of color. And to me, that's the Asian, that's the Latin, that's the black. And I don't identify as black American. I mean African American. I'm black American.
How do you identify?
I'm black
American.
Yeah, I'm a Negro.
Okay.
Same.
Throw up the fist.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Because I never have, I never am. Never. Well, because there's too many things, people of color, that are not black American. Jamaican.
Right.
I can name people who say to me, I am not African American. I mean, not black American. I keep confusing it. African American. But I'm really, what you're saying is so true about that. The diversity is something that for me, is is not a black thing. It's diverse. I need to see the mixture of, and I do agree with that 100%.
And just to have, the experiences and those thoughts and like your culture to be represented in these meetings when talking about stories and that sort of thing. Like, come on, like, you're gonna turn a white girl into a geisha? Like, who was at the table when that discussion?
That's so
but
true.
that's what I'm saying. Like, who was in the room?
No one.
Well, let's
and
talk about
thought that was a good idea.
Let's talk about
Right, or a white girl, or like that white Vogue, some Vogue or some overseas, like where they put, it was like African Queen, and it was the white girl from like South Carolina. I'm like, and they like darkened her skin, and it was like, who thought that was a good idea? Like, who was sitting in a room like, let's get that white girl, let's dip her in some like bronze paint, like makeup. They don't get that deep with it.
They don't get, when you talk to them, they didn't even get that far in their heads with it. She was there, they got inspired by this look.
Or they say it's offensive fashion interpretation or something along those lines when
it's
they're
just
ignoring
insane to me.
silly.
I'm like,
Silly.
if you had a I mean, I wouldn't have let that gone down. I would have lost my job.
No, you wanna
like
help-
I'm just
you
like
wanna
that
help
chick.
them.
I'm just gonna be like, no, that's wrong. I'm not even gonna
The
stand by
fashion
it.
interpretation quickly turned to the appropriation
Right,
of the culture.
exactly.
Yeah, give us
So
all those things.
now you're getting ready.
Conversation. Yeah. Let's get out of there.
But it's true. It's so crazy to me. I just don't even know. I would love to be a fly on the wall in those rooms to be like, and someone
Many
said,
people
yep.
feel
Well,
that
who
way.
are,
put
who
that
are
girl.
the people behind the scenes then?
Yeah,
In
did-
the-
I mean,
at the other magazines, at the in the retail sphere,
Yeah,
in
like
fashion.
in the retail, it's really
Who are
well,
the
now
Editors, it's advertisers, it's
now it's
No,
just,
talking in the room. She's talking about in the room. Like who's
Yeah.
in the room to
Who's-
sort of like
who's
help make
making
this
the decisions?
to make it look like it should be, like it looks
Clearly no one of
worldly.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because-
it's not, well, some people of color
Or-
sitting there scared to
Or
death.
they're scared.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what?
know,
I
this-
just feel like if you have the privilege of being in that room, you got to speak up. You got to say something. Like your presence is more than just being a black person, a quota. Like you have to use your voice and you have to say something. There's like you're wasting a spot, a moment.
But see, but with that said, you know, many people have tried that and they get shut down. Then after a while, they start feeling like, I don't want to seem like I'm fighting just for my race. Sometimes you're just fighting for the truth. Yeah, it's not about the race. But then if they keep doing it, everybody in the room starts looking at them like this. You know what she's, oh, well, yeah, sure. Here she's going to go with that black thing again.
But
You
it's,
know what I
like, but
mean?
it's
You
also
know?
like I'm saving you a whole lot of grief. Like
backlash.
Black Twitter will drag you from here to there. Like people will have you. Like I'm helping you here.
Yeah.
So like, or I can allow you to do
I
that
agree.
and see what happens. And we
Education.
see every single time it happens, people get dragged.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do you want me to speak up and say this might not be a good idea, or
And
do you
that
want me
would
to
be-
shut up?
That would be truly your calling. And some people just not meant to be that person, but they got the opportunity to be in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you need that person who really is there to say, I'm trying to. That's why I always say when they talk about diversity and my whole, advocacy for that, as I said it when I got my award. Look, I'm not trying to help black people. I'm trying to help white people.
Right.
Those are people who need the help.
It's true.
People say, Miss Hardison, Miss Bethann, I'm so happy you try to take care, help us. We don't need help. We can walk away from this shit in a minute. You know what I mean? The fact of it is, who I'm trying to help is the person who's at the wheel driving the car. I'm trying to say, you know what? You're a little late at the game. Come with it now, because it's very important to represent as we see, not what we imagine, as we see. Otherwise, our children are sitting there wondering what's going on. Because when they go to school, they'll play with anybody. They don't even know the color of the other person.
But I feel like the
You notice
industry also feels as though they are this like woke kind of like
Yeah, so let's
like,
go back to the headlines even
Yeah.
from this from after Fashion Week, right? The headlines say there's so much progress, and yet
I think they're very quick to congratulate themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm congratulating myself. Yes, there is progress. No,
there's
boy.
progress.
No,
But-
Well, I think it's a hot topic, so it's important. People want to capture it when they're writing. Yes, but if you read, can I see? Where's your headline? If you read her, yes, Bethann. Look.
I mean,
look,
two
when you
models of
read-
color
no,
on
when
the
you
Forget that,
read
forget
two
that,
models
forget
of
that,
color.
forget
Right.
that.
At least two models of
Forget
color
that.
walk
forget-
the runway.
Ignore that bullshit. Let me tell you something right now.
That's not
I'm
enough.
with you. I'm with you on that. That is the headlines. That's hot topics and all.
Two-
When I look at the amount of girls, this is very important. Please know this, kiddies, when you go home to your families and friends. When I look at how many girls are now working as models that are of color, and I mean Asian, Latins, I'm not talking about transgender and plus size. I'm talking about models. I'm telling you, it is hugely different than the choices that were made just 7 years ago. So to me, I don't like looking at what they call ratios and statistics, because you can't make a proper assessment visually when you say the statistics, because there's so many white girls and then there's this many black girls. But when you get to the shows, you go out there and see, you have no idea how many girls there weren't before you. There was
There's context that you have to put that progress into.
You have to see it. Don't sit there and say, well, it's two. If they say two, believe me, you don't know what struggle that was. Because I've got one company, and I'm going to say to all of you right now, you probably never shop them because they're so expensive, The Row. That's the company I'm going after personally. I love those girls, but for them to sit there right now in this day looking so unmodern with one girl of color makes them look like they're full of shit. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Don't ever use that word, by the way.
I'm sure they've used it a lot.
I've already set up a time. I've told CFDA I want to meet with that PR person because there's something wrong there, because those are good kids. They're smart. They do great line, but how can you just consistently, no matter what everybody's getting on board. We need everyone to show a sign that they're awake. I don't use woke. Awake.
Awake.
It's important, so that's why I see it.
Yeah.
I see the visual difference. There's so many girls right now. I sat there last night. There's so many girls of color coming out right now. It looks more modern. So many designers are using them, and I'm praying it doesn't fall back. So far, it's going forward, forward, forward. I just want
But it shouldn't be that headline that at least 2 models of color. It shouldn't be that, this season. It shouldn't be that you have the designer who some have none, still have none. They won't have 2 models of color. And you know who they are. We're not going to go and bash them all today. But some have 0 and don't care.
That's right.
Like you're saying in the row, there's so many brands, big designers that are going during Fashion Week that won't put any.
And it was only 2013 that you called out the industry, right?
Yeah.
So it was only a few years ago. And I want to talk about your letter to the industry or to the public at large.
Yes. Yeah.
And what spurred, just tell everyone, in case they don't know, what spurred that? Because yours was not just about the industry, but it was also a larger political context in relation to Black Lives Matter. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think all of you are truth speakers. You know, you're writing, and you both wrote public letters, and you've also been interviewed and said some things where you have been speaking the truth about some of these issues. So talk a little bit about yours, and then I want to switch gears pretty quickly to hear from the audience, but just...
I think within the industry, sometimes we just don't understand the impact that we have, especially on people of color, Black people, Black women, the psychological impact and the responsibility that we have because of that impact. And so I wrote that letter after Alton Sterling was murdered by the police, and it was a response to that, and it was a response to seeing myself in a Calvin Klein campaign with natural hair and understanding that representation matters because it affects the way that we look at one another and it affects the way that we look at ourselves. And so it was just, we have a responsibility here to help change the perception of Black people through representation. And my goal with writing that letter was just to get people to understand that it's bigger than fashion. This trickles into how we're raising our sons and daughters. This trickles into their self-esteem. This trickles into when I look at a Black person, do I think criminal or do I think human being? Do I think dangerous or do I think beautiful? We are putting out a message with what we are creating. And so we have to be very conscious of that, and we are not conscious of that. So it was really trying to shed light on that.
And so do you feel like that was a brave and kind of scary move to write that? I mean, I think, again, when you're speaking from a place at Essence as compared to maybe another publication, when you're speaking openly and you have agents and managers trying to essentially tell you what you should be doing for your career, was that a scary move?
It was definitely scary for me. I didn't have the platform that I have now. I didn't have the campaigns under my belt that I have now. And so I wasn't in a position in the industry where I could have a voice and be able to speak candidly the way I do now without fear of backlash. At that time, it was still very scary for me because that's how I pay my rent. That's how I sustain my life. That's how I pay for everything. So it's just, there was definitely the thought in the back of my mind, I could be blackballed from the industry and nobody will want to work with me. But to me, telling the truth was more important. Having people understand the value in what they are creating was more important, and really telling my story in the way that it affected me growing up, which I talked more about in my TED Talk after I wrote the letter. I think from that, people really got a sense of understanding, like this has psychological impacts, especially on young people of color, that are lifelong. You know, these things don't just go away. I would look in the mirror and think, oh my God, I'd be so much more attractive with a thin nose, or with fairer skin, lighter eyes, you know, with softer hair texture, you know, and these are things that I started telling myself when I was 4 years old. I can recall looking in the mirror and feeling, you know, I'm not beautiful. You know, and that's because I would look at advertisements and I would not see myself represented in that. I would look at television and I would not see myself represented in that. And like you were talking about earlier about the spectrum of blackness being represented, I didn't really want to be white. I never wanted to be white. I just wanted to be a fairer skinned black person. And so when you talk about representation, you really have to show all of the shades, all of the colors, and really give somebody something, or give us something to latch onto and to see ourselves in.
It's interesting about progress, and you know, it's interesting about progress, how progress in one way can sort of like be such a valley of more problems. Because I grew up, well, you know, it was a long time ago, and the essence of that is that there was not enough publications. So don't start smiling and laughing.
Happy birthday! I was thinking happy birthday.
I said you didn't have much publications, so you didn't, and the ones you did have was Jet, Ebony, and stuff like that, and you know, and our neighborhoods were so like it was all black, and you didn't have these things. I didn't have to, like so many young girls in my life now, growing up and having a model agency, having people in your life, they all think, oh, thank God I had this one, and I could put them on my wall. I had Naomi, I had Tyra, I had, you know, Kimora, I had Rashumba. I had them on my wall. It made me feel like I could be, you know, I could be all right too. And I never had that. I had one white girl that I loved to death that was in 17 magazine. It had nothing to do with me wanting to be white, surely not, because that wasn't going to happen. But the fact of it really is that I love Carol Lindley. And I think that was because I was destined to be a model, a scout for something or something. But we never had that. And so when you see how things have changed and how publications, and you start having to see them, and they start to be developed and going into neighborhoods, which I never even had a Vogue or any of those stuff in our magazines. Our parents were so mad cool, so together. We never even, my mother never even had magazines in her house. She had cards. You played cards. You know, we never even had those things. So it's so interesting.
It's like the accessibility,
yes,
the
accessibility
progress that's being
progress
made.
That eventually it makes it more and more till you become more aware that you're not in the room.
That you're not it.
You're not there. You're not there. And me, Bethann Hardison said, we're all there. It's so much there that you just can't believe it. And it's, I really care very much about what I do, and then we got to get to the floor. But I do really care about a lot what you were saying, Julie, because you really were. I too was very happy when you were at Huffington Post, and I too had, you know, Julie, and I wanted to always keep working and sending you things and do whatever you asked me to do, I do it. But I really want to do something about that whole thing about feeling, you know, like that impartiality where people just don't respect. I mean, I've had that with Essence all the time. Essence has always been, because I've been close to all the editors. But, you know, at some point, there has to be some sort of, like, change of thinking.
Yeah.
Beyond those, who can make those changes of
thinking. But it's the
thinking.
double-edged sword in a way, because you said with Dapper Dan, you had more freedom to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I mean, the industry is changing so much. Magazines are folding left and right. I don't know if we'll ever get back to the heyday where these like big, you know, fashion houses are spending all this advertising money and Gucci will advertise in Essence. I don't think that that's necessarily what I need or want, or what needs to be the solution. What needs to be the solution is you clearly are attracted and inspired by Black culture, and yet the beacon of Black culture in magazines you don't want to mess with. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me, that you don't want to have a relationship with a community in which you're constantly biting from.
Selling your products.
And selling your products. So we will spend our last to get that Gucci or like whatever to feel, you know, the luxury and part of and that sort of thing. But these are the situations that you don't hear about, but that like, yeah, you love Gucci, sure, now Dapper Dan and Gucci have a partnership, and I'm really glad that they've mended that relationship. But the general public doesn't know that Gucci, yeah, they'll put black people in their advertisement, but they won't. They literally will not send a dress to Essence.
Yeah, but that's also because in their minds they're thinking that that's not their market. They don't see that that your market is really going to buy because they don't know it. They know.
Meanwhile,
they
all
know
the biggest black stars in the world are wearing Gucci.
I'm just getting ready to say. But as I was getting ready to say, the reason is that fact that they don't need Essence for them to get to you anyway. So that's what I'm saying. So in their mind, they don't see that is a bridge to get to where they have to go. So why put that dollar there when they already have it?
Absolutely. But it doesn't cost them anything in a sense of, that's why I don't understand it.
Okay,
because I'm like,
Gucci
all you have to do is send us the dress. We have relationships with some really amazing fashion houses, like, you know, Fendi and like these people, Prada, they will send us, but Gucci, Dior, Balenciaga, like there's certain brands that are like every single time we will reach out. They're like, nah, we're gonna pass.
So
we're gonna pass. We're gonna pass.
Area you need to.
But I'm like, they don't need. They know that they have the black market. But what is it gonna hurt you?
Well, that's
your business going to be hurt having your dress shot on a beautiful black model in Essence?
It won't.
That's why I'm like, why not?
I have somebody there at Gucci that I know. If I speak to him, he'll come and take a meeting with you.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
We'll make it happen.
The world's problems are solved.
He said the word.
All right, so let me open it up because I think these ladies will just keep talking if I let them.
No, we're not.
So let's come down here, and there's hands.
He has a mic up there, but maybe you don't need it.
Ooh, there's water flew over.
I want to say thank you. This has been such a treat to be in your company this evening. But I also want to say we've heard a lot of negative about the industry. And if you love fashion, it's hard to contain it. So can you tell us a little bit of the plus side of the business? Because we all love fashion. That's why we're here.
Oh, there's a lot of plus sizes to fashion. People in it to win it. You know, there's some good stuff in it. I mean, I call it a Titanic, but that's because, you know, I see it.
But that's not positive, Bethann.
That's positive. I mean, you just see, you know, to get your and jump. But the fact of it is there is. If you stop thinking, this is one thing I was thinking about Tim, and I love this. I think that the apparel business is a wonderful business. I believe in the manufacturing business. I don't consider it necessarily the fashion business. The fashion business is having its problems, but the big luxury brands are not. They're doing their thing. They'll hit a peak too. But if you think that you're in the apparel business, you're doing a beautiful thing because that is where you're selling to people. Everybody can't afford fashion, and you can't be dictated by fashion. You have believe that you can service a whole market of people without getting caught up in, and so many young people now want to be in fashion. Even if they saw a button on a shirt, they think they're in fashion. They're not. You know what I mean? You know, so I think it's very important to know that the garment business is alive and well in many ways, and I think people who love clothes and style, it's open to a whole world, and people love it. And you have models that are good. You know, don't let your 12-year-old child model right away, but truly they're models and editors to be able to get behind the scenes of a magazine, to get behind the scenes of anything and be able to help shape how we think and talk is the most valuable thing right now. It's better to be behind the scenes and then in front of the camera because we need all the help we can get. So it's not all negative. It's just that we have to talk about what we think, you know, needs some fixing. Yeah.
I think on the editorial, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, on the editorial side of things, you know, there's some exciting things happening as well. You know, Elaine Weltroth is the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. You have Nicole Chapineau, who's now the fashion director at Allure. Samir is at
American Elle.
At American Elle. Look at Edward Edenfall is now the editor-in-chief of British Vogue and is like just putting all the black folk like on the masthead. I'm like, Naomi's over there now. Pat McGrath.
Yeah.
They have a new black publisher.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. So there are moves, and I'm also going back to like the manufacturing side of things. I'm on the advisory board of Harlem's Fashion Row, which is an organization run by Brandis Daniel, who she's just doing such amazing things to try to get black designers a voice and representation and out there, because less than 1% of, you know, of actual designers and brands that you can buy at the store and retail are of color. So that's, you know, there's things happening, and it's good. And the fact that we're sitting here and talking about this today, and that, you know, we were just joking about upstairs about how, like, we kind of all know each other. We've all kind of met each other at some point. Like, the industry is this small when you're a person of color, but it's so nice that we can come together and support each other and talk like this. So there's things happening. It's just, there is progress.
To your question about what are good sides of fashion, being someone that's been in many different aspects of fashion, from, you know, design and merchandising and modeling on both sides of the camera, not photography, but most sides. And then again, when I look into this room and you say that a lot of you are here for fashion, I think it's important to, things are looking up every day. That we're talking about, sort of in the beginning, we started off with some hurdles and challenges, but I think it's important to do what you love and know that, you know, there is a way in for everybody. So no matter what aspect or area of fashion or business you're interested in, you're always going to bring to the table. That was a big note of music, of hip hop. You're going to bring to the table your experiences. So if you always create, that could be black, white, Asian, it could be gay, transgender. There's always going to be some topic on the table. That is because things are changing and people are different that are coming to the table for their seat. It doesn't mean that they are new. It means that they are new at the forefront at that time. And things are cyclical. Things change and things come about. I'm sure, you know, Beth, you can tell us, nowadays there's a transgender model or not, you know, it's a gay conversation. I'm sure Bethann, did you start in the 60s? 70s? I'm sure she can tell you of lots of people that were gay or transgender, or things come to the forefront because they are sort of the phrase I used, the topic at that time, but it's not new. Everything that has been done will be repeated, but it can be your time. So if you do things that always are from your perspective, little by little, if we passed around a bucket, let's just say that was the fashion bucket, little by little, if everybody put in what is important to them, what is their background, what is their interests, what are their causes, what things do they see, what do they want to change? I think that's what creates the landscape. So the fact that we are here to discuss good and bad, it's bringing an awareness, but always if you come to the table with what is your passion, that conversation will always be growing and ever evolving and changing. And I think that's very important to say.
It's such a pleasure to be in the presence of all of you amazing women on stage. So thank you so much. Thank you. I just watched your talk, Bethann, with Veronica Webb and Riley Montana the other day from the FIT Museum conversation. So I have a question in regard to kind of, you know, now that Edward Enninful is, you know, the editor-in-chief of British Vogue, do you feel it's an obligation for him to put more people of color, you know, in the magazine now, or does he face any backlash if he does that?
I don't think it's an obligation. I don't. But I do think that you go with, she just used the perfect thing about what you believe, and you come to what your passion is and what you believe in. He's doing what he just thinks, you know, well, you know, now you put me, you gave me the opportunity. He's going to make sure that it's a balance of how bring talent, no matter what the color person is.
I think it goes like what you said earlier, like it's not about a black thing, it's about a truth thing.
That's exactly right, and I agree. And I think that he did get some backlash, and in Europe, you know, they wanted to question a lot of things. the fight is real for all of us. It continues. But he's just, he has the backing of the heir of Condé Nast, and he's just doing what he has to do. So I do think, I don't know if he feels an obligation, but he's like me, like I was when I had my agency. I wasn't Woody Allen. I wasn't going to keep the whole thing white. I was going to make sure I mixed it up. You know what I mean? I had to, I wanted to represent myself. I wanted to look at, I liked the way she looked. I believed in things. So I think that he's what he's going to do. And I'm very happy for him in it. It's really brown.
It is very brown.
But if you look at the
It's
picture,
very brown.
I think Naomi posted a picture
Naomi.
before of the whole executive team.
Brian
not
Boy.
just executive,
Brian Boy had been
but the
placed,
whole
and then she
fashion
picked it up.
team.
Yeah.
And it was
before.
It was all white.
I mean,
I don't know if
it was crazy.
Yeah,
It's
so I
like,
think
But that's
it's important
normal, though.
no, it is, but it's like, I don't
You
know.
don't
it's
ever
not
see it.
glaring
You never get the visual.
juxtaposition of
What is gonna to
positions
come.
and color and
What's to
people
come.
and experiences.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and I think the people that helped him to get there maybe don't see it as an obligation, but a necessity. It will happen. It's inevitable.
Inevitable. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's true that.
I'm going to get someone over there.
Get my little boy there in the denim jacket.
Yeah, I know.
Hello, I'm Lexus, and I love what you guys are doing and have done. I actually came to be here for the truth, and I really appreciate it. I actually am an artist, and I'm just curious more so about, like, people keep telling me to model, and I do it, I've done it, whatever. But what I'm more so having a problem about is me being a lesbian in it and not wanting to wear heels, and I just want to be myself. Like, I don't mind wearing makeup, because it helps. I know for editing, but
For the photograph.
Yeah, for the photographs. But I'm just like, I want to be me. I want to be able to rock a tuxedo, and so that's my dilemma.
So but you're living where?
I'm living here right now.
Yeah, and so what you do is you model for people who want you to model in their whatever that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you're at Elite or some agency in New York or
Right.
agency in LA that's representing you as a model.
Right.
You're modeling freelance like.
Right.
Yeah. So you don't get so caught up in it. You do it as you
Yeah.
do, because there's a girl, I forget her name, but she has that same vibe. And Stephen Meisel really loved her. And he wound up getting her on the cover of Italian Vogue. And she is of the same ilk. She basically, this is who I am, but she's so attractive. And all it is a look. If the look is right, you're in.
Right.
If the look ain't right, you're out.
Right.
So if it's a look and you're a good-looking kid,
I went to an agency and the lady just told me, like, you wouldn't be a Forever 21 model, and I'm like,
but that's
well,
cool. That's cool.
like,
you
how-
really
I
want to
don't
be a
know.
Forever
So-
21? That's cool for her to say that, because dare she say that now?
Yeah,
She'd
she
be
said
surprised.
It was a
You
good
never
thing.
know.
Yeah, she said it was a great thing. So
Yeah.
only concern was my height. So.
Yeah.
But again, you bring your background and you bring your personality to the table. So sometimes people will hire you because you have a cool look and they want you, the personality. But other times, and I'm surprised Bethann didn't say this because she would have told me that, if you get hired for a job, if you've put yourself up and you're going to go out for that job, and now you get that job and you show up and they want you to put on heels, you're going to have to put on the heels too. So it's a little bit of both. It's the personality, but it's also
But it could be
the
real
fantasy
cool, though.
of it. You're going to
It
have
could
to
look
show
good.
up and do what,
Yeah.
that Bethann would have told me. You put on the jacket. We don't care if you don't like it.
Right.
You put on the heels too.
You're going to wear them heels.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of
That was
both.
tough.
It's your own truth and your own personality, but it's also a job that you were there to do. So
Sorry. And I just want to say, I think everybody has their moment, because even with me, my challenge was my natural hair and the decision to wear my hair natural, and my agency saying you're not going to book jobs, you're going to lose the clients that you already have, and you're not going to get any new clients, and me really just standing firm in my decision and just saying, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to wait for whatever comes to me.
Yeah.
If I end up losing clients in the process, and that's okay, because my identity, who I am, who I want to be, is more important. So it's really up to you. What do you place value on? You know?
I like your hair.
And modeling is so corny.
That's good.
It's so corny.
It is.
It is.
It's fun. Like,
But it's fun. Like I'm saying,
Yeah.
we're not going to put our whole life hanging on like,
Right.
Exactly. You're not.
Your boy in
So-
your jean jacket.
Thank you.
Jean
for looking
jacket.
out for me. my little boy. In
Jean jacket's her.
Yeah,
Jean jacket's up.
Bethann's got you.
How you guys doing?
Thank you very
My
much.
name is Jesse. I just want to commend you guys for sticking to your values, although you're still in this very superficial environment. That's very, it's very, yes, it's a hard thing to do. But I have a question. As far as community goes, I'm a recording artist and I have a lot of peers, and we sit down, we have discussions, we talk about progress in our art form. Do you guys feel like you guys have that sense of community in your fellow peers in what you do, or have you experienced that? And
Yeah.
is that a thing?
I think you have to create it for yourself.
you
It's
do.
not
You have
something.
to find it, you know, and you have to. Yeah, she says she's right. I mean, that's why the Black Girls Coalition that was before was dormant. Now it's alive again because of all the girls that I keep, wanting to keep adding waves of it. So they help each other now. Where before they didn't know each other, we sat down at a table. It was 15 of them. They start to know each other. Then they have a chat. Now they start to support each other. When one doesn't get a job, they support each other and say, "Yay, come on, don't worry." You know, it's not. It doesn't allow them to be females, number one, where we could be very, and then at the same time competitive for a job that one could take from them. They support each other in it. So I see that. And the rest of it, I've always felt too, whether it be black or white. I've always felt the community. Stephen, myself, Bruce Weber, those people helped me build my business. Andre Talley, everybody. I mean, Susan Taylor. I mean, people support those who they feel has something that they want to help get going. You got the talent, you got the backing.
Okay, you want to get someone down here in the front?
Oh, it's coming to you.
She's
Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, yeah. I'll get you.
Hi, my name is Chelsea, and I'm a senior studying business here at USC, and it's honestly a dream come true to be here in front of all of you. I really appreciate all your words and your insight. And something I've been kind of battling with is I'm like actually working in public accounting, and there's a big part of me that always wanted to start off on the more corporate side, and then go into fashion, because I've always had this interest in becoming a model, but at the same time, like I love the merchandising side, I love supply chain. So I'm always going back and forth between fashion and business. So I just kind of want your advice on how I can best kind of strategize and figure out what I want to do, or I guess how to get there and mix the two. Thank you.
Because you did
Well,
that.
yeah, I've done both sides, and I'm married to a banker, so that you perked up now in the conversation. But I would say that it's super important. The business side, it helps you run your business, create your business. The numbers is what it all comes down to. After you're an artist, like you or so many other ones in the room, creatively, we're artists. As fashion people, you are an artist, you are a talent, but I think the other side of it is the business side and the number side, and I think that side is so important. Oftentimes businesses, fail not because of the model they chose or didn't choose or it's the numbers. It comes down to the numbers. I think it's so important. So when I look at you and I hear you talking, I think of my daughter, who she's 17, she's a senior in high school, she wants to model. Ming. So they call her for stuff all the time. So she does little things here and there. But I don't necessarily want her to go the route I did. It's not even the same route anymore, where I started at 12 or 13. I want her to go to school. I want her to pursue the business degree. To me, the fashion is something that you can, it's not to be rude, it's not a hobby, but it's not the most important side of it.
The
so
longevity.
for every person here, the longevity. For all of us here, I think the business side of it is what makes it go. No one is truly sitting there saying that I made it as a model only and forever. You have like Naomi. I look at her all the time and I'm like, wow, she's still going. She really looks that good. She's still going down the runway. She loves it, but she's the rare unicorn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When I was coming up, I often thought it was weird to me that you would come out and people would, scream for you, and they thought you were the most beautiful thing, the weirdest girl in the room. You were the most beautiful thing. But then I thought, wow, well, what if I tripped down the steps and broke my leg? Now and I can't walk. Now you don't think I'm anything anymore. Yeah. So it was hard for me to base my whole life on something that was so superficial or that could be so fleeting according to your beauty or your age or your size or your body type. So I think it's important to have both sides, but the business side of it is what makes it go. The business side is what you have to fall not back on, but the business side is what props you up. The business side, you can do anything with it. Like Bethann had an agency, so she was representing all of the faces, all of the talents. I think that's more important. And to me, it's to have someone like you that's in finances, and you are beautiful. I think that's almost the unicorn in the room. That's the special thing in the room. Like when you think of, finance people, they don't necessarily look like you. So there's nothing wrong with the modeling, but don't give the other part.
And remember, modeling is corny.
It's my favorite.
Corny.
Not to turn you away from the modeling, because you're
turning
beautiful.
you away. I'm turning you away.
Well, but a lot of
don't
people
do
here
it.
might be
Run.
interested in that.
Run, because you got so much more going on. But I agree with
Don't
her.
let that part go away, the part
yeah.
that you have going on, and do the fashion part as like the pastime. See how you like it, but don't give, the other part is the foundation of what you can build so much more with. I've found that. I've come to the table progressively in that direction.
She didn't want to do, I can tell you stories about her that would make you laugh, but she didn't want to do half the things she's doing. You know what I mean? She had to get hook-winked and
It's always
like pulled in, but she's capable. But the fact of it really is, and I'm talking about when I went to the business side of it, I'm talking about the design, doing things like that. That was not, I mean, she could have stayed and hung out a little longer playing, running up and down. She basically just had to do. But the fact of it is, when I say the business, when I say modeling is corny, it's because it is. But the reason why I say it in that way is because it's something that is, like she's saying, is fleeting. The truth of it really is, as long as somebody else has to determine your destiny,
Yes.
you're putting yourself in an awkward position. The brain that you have, the desire you have, the passion you have. I mean, you hear us, each one of us talking about the difficulties because other people are the gatekeepers. What you want to do is get out there and find your own gate, build it, and prop it up properly.
Hey, that was a word.
Okay, let's see.
Hi, my name is Ozadi. I'm an artist and student at the USC School of Annenberg. My biggest question for all of you this evening is, how do you protect your authenticity and your creativity in an industry that's notorious for ripping off the ideas of others in regards of Dapper Dan and Gucci and
We're not
Baby Fat
notorious for
and-
doing it.
well, not
break.
the industry, but I guess the higher brow
Gucci.
portions of the industry is
Or-
notorious for that.
How do you
have
maintain
to
your
be
individuality?
I know how to do that. How you do that?
I know how to do
It's not easy. It's not easy because, within the industry, there's...
Once you're available and you're seen, right?
Yeah. But for me, it was really difficult. I wrote the letter. I decided to wear my hair natural. That was the first step. I wrote the letter. That was the second step. I did the TED Talk, and I realized ultimately what I wanted was just to be undefined and just to be and just, whatever I choose to be in that moment and whatever I come to the table with, So for me, protecting my authenticity was walking in my truth. Figuring out first and foremost who I am, which in order to do, I had to strip away the layers. For me, which was taking out the weave. It was not straightening my hair anymore. It was, carrying myself in the way that I wanted to carry myself, opposed to what I thought or how I thought I had to carry myself in order to be a model. Because, we're given these ideas of what a model looks like or what a doctor looks like or what an accountant looks like. And so when you see something outside of that, it's like, this is not what we're used to, but it resonates as truth and authenticity, and you get it, and people gravitate toward it, even though it's not the norm. And for me, it was just like sticking in that, even though I felt like at times I was putting myself at risk of, not working, or putting myself at risk of people blackballing me, or putting myself at risk of my agency thinking I was difficult or an angry black woman, because that was another label that I had to deal with, with me speaking up, and not only on the platform of TED or in the letter, but just in my day-to-day work, showing up and, the makeup artist not knowing what to do, or the hair person not knowing what to do, and having to, navigate through those situations. Yeah, it's really just a matter of having your identity, knowing your identity, and living that in every single moment.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think just to answer your question too, I think my trajectory as well has been kind of interesting, in which it's almost been really tailor-made for me to be really authentic. And I've always been like fashion magazine adjacent. Like I've never worked at like an actual one of the major fashion magazines. So like, you know, before HuffPost, I was at Real Simple magazine, which again, it's like, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's a lifestyle magazine. It's like a Martha Stewart. We had fashion and beauty because that's what I did, but never was quite at like a Vogue or a Elle or a Harper's Bazaar. And then when I went to HuffPost, again, still not there. And then now at Essence, still not at a fashion magazine, but we call ourselves Black Girl Magic Headquarters because that's what we are. And I get to be myself and be around amazingly Black and talented women, and I get to live my true self without any barriers. And at HuffPost, the same thing. I could like speak my truth and speak about the things that I saw that were wrong or right or whatever, and not have those restraints of being at one of the major fashion magazines where it's like, you can't say that because advertising dollars, or like the editor-in-chief is best friends with Marc Jacobs, so like don't say nothing about them dreadlocks on the runway. So it was like I've never really. It's been interesting because I've always looked at my career too and been like, damn. Like I've never, like I'm this fashion girl, but I've never been at a fashion like publication. And then I like think, and I'm like, that's by design. Like that was the universe saying, Julie, like you would have been so stifled and not become the woman that you are and the outspoken writer and editor that you are had you been at those places. You would have just had to fit into that box and done whatever, you know, they said to do, and just been like a vehicle for their vision, rather than saying, no, that's not right, and I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to be black, blackity black. Like that, no, and it's so amazing that I can do that. I can just be as Black as I want to be and call out anybody I want to call out, because like I don't have any of those like restraints. It's so refreshing, that freedom.
It's being true to yourself.
Yeah.
However you come to the table, because you may say, you know, you're saying I don't have to go to work and wear, you know, a weave anymore, or Julie can go to work and come with her hair how it is, how she wants it to be. You can show up and be uniquely yourself. Nobody has a story to tell you, surely, in life that you're talking to or about or you're reading about. No person is showing up on a panel or in a story or in a book or any place that you've read to tell you about their journey of fitting into a cookie cutter mold.
Yes.
So I think it's being authentically yourself, because it's breaking out of the mold in your way that's going to make you special.
Yes, I just wanted to piggyback on what Julie said. I did not have this success in my career until after I wrote the letter, did the TED Talk, and all that stuff. And had I had that success prior to those things happening, I wouldn't be sitting on this stage.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have done the TED Talk. I wouldn't be walking in my. What'd you say?
I would have found.
You would have found.
You would have found me, but I wouldn't. You know, I would be complacent. I would be satisfied.
You
because
wouldn't
you wouldn't have needed to say.
Neither
I
you
wouldn't
nor
have needed
Julie
to
will
say it.
ever be complacent.
I wouldn't have needed to say it. I wouldn't have needed to say it, because I would have had the Vogue, I would have had the Elle, I would have had the covers.
Yeah, true.
You know, so
this like false sense of like success
fitting in
or whatever.
success,
like, yes,
or
I did it.
acceptance.
I've been acceptance or a validation. Like,
Exactly.
I'm at that publication.
Right.
I'm a Voguette. Like, blah, blah. I don't have to do anything. Just being a Black girl there is enough for the world to see that I'm a Black girl at Vogue.
And if I don't open doors for any other Black girl, it's fine, because I did it.
Right. But like our situations and our and what's happened with our careers is such that we can be here and talk about it freely and feel good about it and expose some of these nasty things that we see in the industry without feeling like I'm going to go back to work. I'm gonna fly back to New York and I'm gonna have a pink slip on my desk, or my shit is gonna be packed up, and they're gonna be like, "You gotta go." Like I don't have to fear that.
Yeah, they're a trio.
You know what? We're kind of running late on time, and I know there's so many other people that have questions, and there is a reception that we're gonna have upstairs, and people will hang out, and you can ask questions.
You want to ask a question?
You want to ask
quickly?
Quick. Just one quick one?
Hi, I'm Michael.
Okay.
I'm like in Marshall, so I'm like the capitalist of the group. This is like really interesting to know you guys. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys to do for each other was like to say one strength or one lesson you guys have learned from each other. So from Ms. Hardison to Ms. Wilson to Ms. Davis, Ms. Davis to Ms.
Wow.
Simmons.
This is like a
You're
real,
like
like
the
you said, that's like a,
This is like therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is therapy.
So wait,
Well,
what? Who?
So
I can tell you.
Here's something you've seen from each other in this moment. Next to it, you're like, wow, I didn't see that, or wow, I didn't notice that from each other. And you guys can just go. I think it's
Oh, I don't know. I know what I've seen that has been inspirational from her, for me. Yeah. No, the fact that she's so smart, you know, that no one knew how smart she was. Because she was so busy being crazy. But she was so smart. I mean, she's totally, I'm talking about academically, not smart, just swift. I'm talking about academically smart. And it's wonderful to know someone when they're a child, you know, and to know and to see that they were determined, naturally, but not like, I'm going to be someone, not with ambition, so per se, not necessarily desire, but innate opportunity taken. And that I'm always very impressed with. I come back in her life specifically because I'm impressed that she had some longevity. I'm gonna cry. Oh, stop! Don't touch me! Don't touch me!
Nobody makes Bethann cry.
Oh, I'm gangster. Oh God, I almost did. I really did. I almost cried. But I mean,
I think you did.
I do. But also, and I want to say this also about the other two, because I want to say this too. For someone like, I haven't met anyone that when people say, well, who could take the baton from you and do what the thing? I'm very proud to have met Ebonee because of her, you know, she has some mandingo in her, you know, and that's a very interesting thing to me. Yeah, that sense of activism. And to see Julee, who basically, to me, you know, was always someone I don't think ever tried to be in those magazines, because if she did she would have gotten there. You have to really fight for those jobs. And I think at some point she should, because that's where she can make a great difference. I'm sorry to tell you.
Oh, okay. I have learned from my fellow panelists, and I feel like the audience at large, whenever I go somewhere, but in particular these women, about the attitude of perseverance and individuality and embracing your own beauty, your own journey, your own story. So certainly I've known Bethann for many, many years. I've seen that journey. I know her story. But even sitting here, I hear other aspects that I maybe didn't know. And I think, you know, going down the line with the girls here, it always is amazing to me to see other beautiful women and see how you all see yourself, see how you think your story should be told, see how what your struggles are, what your journey has been. So it makes me proud, and it makes me feel like, wow, you know, you're not the only one who necessarily has faced these battles or these demons. You may have stories that are individual to yourself, each one of us, but really when you think about it, everybody goes home and has their story of truth and honesty that they just want to be heard. And I think that's what I was saying to you, is eventually you come to the table with those journeys. No one person is going to come and tell you the tale of being the cookie cutter girl in the room.
Right.
So thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Did we do?
Yeah. He said go down the line.
Hurry up, because we got to go.
To be with you. For me, it's just a matter of realizing that life is about evolution, and when I see generations of women who came before me and who really made a way for me, I'm just filled with gratitude. And I was having this conversation earlier, you know, we're all standing on someone's shoulders, and for me, I'm standing on Bethann's shoulders, I'm standing on Kimora's shoulders, I'm standing on Julee's shoulders. I couldn't be Ebonee if it wasn't for these three women. I couldn't sit here as Ebonee and have the voice that I have the position that I have. And so with each generation, we're fighting for a little bit more freedom, fighting to overcome a little more you know, have a little less fear. And so it's really just, I'm everything. I've learned everything from these women, you know, honestly. It's just incredible for me to be able to come and be the one, you know, to carry the torch now and, you know, to pass that on to someone else and really build that legacy.
Yeah. And I'll try to be quick, but I've known Bethann for several years now, and I think I'm most, I mean, we know she's the GOAT already. I mean, we know that, and her experience and her resume and that sort of thing. And so because of that, I think I've been so awestruck with the fact that she's so accessible to everyone, but especially us in the industry. She is really someone that you can sit and talk to. She has dinners. We've been on the phone for hours, not just talking about the fashion industry, talking about our lives, like her granddaughter and like education and like the world. Like that to me is so amazing, that there's like a genuine friendship and relationship that Bethann has with so many of us that look to her as this beacon and as this person who can really encourage us and support us and pat us on the back when we do something really great, and be a shoulder to cry on and lean on when, you know, we're feeling a bit beaten down. So I thank you for that, because that is invaluable. Like I pinch myself knowing that you know me and that we have each other's phone numbers. That just like blows my mind. Kimora,
More than Beyonce?
Huh? I don't have Beyonce's phone number. If you want to give it to me, I will take good care of it.
Kimora.
But so Kimora and I don't know each other on a personal level, but I obviously, like everyone else in the world, have, you know, admired Kimora from afar. And I have to say her ability to reinvent herself and to just create just these different chapters in your book is just like amazing to me. And now being a mother, you know, we talked a little, we were FaceTiming with my son before we got in here. I have a 3-year-old son, and you know, I'm telling you this just right now, but like looking at you and seeing what you've done with your career and your life, and being a mother of many, like,
have a play date.
Right, we're gonna have a play date, but I have one, and it's hard for me to keep it together. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, like, if I'm doing it well. I'm probably not, but like, I feel like I'm going crazy. And to see you do it, you know, beyond whether you have financial help or nannies or like any of that, like, which I do have help here and there, but like just the emotional aspect of it, it's so hard to like keep it together and stay focused and like really focus on your business and who you are, staying to fact who you are. And so I really admire you for that. You've really done a great job of that. I mean, I think people still see you as Kimora and as this fierce, badass woman, and also this mother, which that's why I want people to look at me. Like, like you're a badass, but like you're also a really dope mom. And then Ebonee over here, who I've had the pleasure of knowing for like only like 6 or 7 months now, but we've become fast friends, and I'm so inspired by her outspokenness. And like Bethann said, like if anyone's going to carry this torch after Bethann puts it down, although I'm sure she's not putting it down anytime soon, it's Ebonee, because she's she knows what's up. And again, like I said, please follow her and pick up the messages that she's putting down, because they're really inspiring, and they are a battery in my back a lot of the times when I'm feeling like, oh God, like, do I have to write this POV about this or that? And I'll go to your Instagram and like I'll be like, yeah, I am. Like, Ebonee's out here, like, calling people out and, like, taking screenshots of, like, you know, like, casting, like, emails talking about we don't want any, like, black girls or natural hair. I'm like, you know what? We're going to write about this. And, like, so it's really nice to have this coalition of women and beyond that you don't see. Really, we really do support each other, and it's really a beautiful thing, and I love it.
All right. I want to
That wasn't quick.
No. All right. I want to thank everyone for coming. I appreciate it so much, and I appreciate you sharing your views and voices, and hopefully we can share a little bit more. There's a reception upstairs, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.